In this lecture, I'm going to try to answer the obvious question why you should want to get your CC Certified in Cybersecurity certification. So let me for a minute put my salesman hat on here and explain to you exactly why now is an amazing time to get certified. First off, cybersecurity is an awesome field to work in, and having a certification on your resume is going to make you stand out. There is a huge demand for cybersecurity professionals, and that demand just keeps growing. In the US alone, there are more than 750,000 open jobs in cybersecurity, and we have just over 1.1 million people working in the field, meaning 40% of all cybersecurity jobs in the US we are unable to fill. And every year, that demand keeps growing. So right now, there are about 4.5 million people working in cybersecurity, and the demand grows by 11 or 12% every year. That means that there are 500,000 new cybersecurity jobs in the world every single year. So crazy demand for people who are in cybersecurity and who are certified. And there really is a variety of reasons why you may want to get certified. Some people, like me, just need to keep learning. And that is probably the reason why I ended up in IT and IT security, because there's so much to learn. It keeps evolving. But there's also the career aspect, the money aspect. Because I had my IT and cybersecurity certifications, I've had some amazing jobs where I got paid very well. It was a completely conscious decision that we made as a family, my wife and I, that I should spend the time, get certified, so I could get better jobs, make more money, and help secure my family's future. Now, if you, like me, are one of those people who needs to keep learning, at some point you might want to be a little specific about which certifications to take. Today I have maybe 15, 20 certifications, but if I had done the certification for everything that I studied for, it would be somewhere in the 50s. But I knew I didn't want to work with databases or with servers or backup solutions. I got the knowledge so I would be better at my job, but I didn't get those certifications because I didn't want recruiters and HR departments to offer me jobs I didn't want. I wanted them to hire me for what I wanted to do. So specifically, I got cybersecurity certifications, project management, and networking certifications. Now, since this is an entry-level certification, I would very highly recommend you get it. Don't just study for it, don't just get the knowledge, but get the actual certification. Take the exam. Because if you have one or more certifications on your resume, it's more likely that you get to the interview. And you being certified is in no way guaranteeing you get the job, because there's just so much more to that equation. You have to have the right knowledge, you have to have the right personality. They might look at your previous jobs, your attitude, and many other things. But having the certification will give you a much higher chance to get to the interview. With certified individuals, they on average make 35% more than the non-certified colleagues, and those are the people they work with. And the salaries are pretty nice. If we look at something relatively entry-level, like a cybersecurity analyst, they on average in the US make $106,000. And again, this is average, it is in the US, so depending on where you are, the salary levels could be higher or lower. And as I have mentioned before, IT and cybersecurity are awesome fields to work in. They keep growing, there's so much to learn, you can specialize in so many awesome things, which for me is amazing. Because almost regardless of what you specialize in, there's going to be a ton of opportunities and a ton of open jobs. We connect everything to the internet. If you remember back maybe 5-10 years, think of how connected were we at that point. Then compare that to now. Then you're going to have some sort of an idea of how connected we're going to be in 5 years. There is a huge demand now. There's going to be a crazy demand in the future. So I think that was my sales pitch. I of course hope that you think IT security is awesome. But on top of that, many people want a better life for themselves and their families. They want to work with interesting things. They want to make more money. They want to work somewhere where they are in demand, so they invest their spare time in upgrading their life. And they of course want to spend that time focusing on somewhere where there's going to be potential, not just now, but in 5 or 10 years. And that has completely worked for me. When I started getting certified, I started with network certifications, then IT security certifications. And at that point, instead of me sending my resumes to recruiters, the recruiters contacted me. So, what are you waiting for? Take your career to the next level, get certified, get an amazing job, make good money, work with things that are awesome, and remember, for the certified in cybersecurity, there are no experience requirements. You don't have to have any experience in the field. Thank you for being here, and I hope I've been able to answer your question of why you should get certified in cybersecurity and why now is an amazing time to do it. In this lecture, we're going to talk about how to register for your exam and what to expect. To register for your exam, go to isc2.org/register-for-exam. Then scroll down a little bit on the page and click Register for Exam. That takes you to another page. Here, you fill out all your personal information. Your name, your address, your country, phone number, employer, date of birth, and a bunch of other things. And a little bit of a warning here. When you fill out the first and the last name, it has to match exactly what's on your ID. If it does not match your ID, you'll get turned away at the testing center. Most of the questions make sense, but there is one where they ask you about the educational training program. And here, IC² only lists official training partners, meaning I'm not on there. So unless you also took training from an official partner, just click None. Once you submit the form, IC² is going to redirect you to the Pearson VUE website, and here you can schedule your exam. You pick the exam that you want to take, then you choose the language. Remember, you have 6 different languages you can take the exams in: Simplified Chinese, English, German, Japanese, Korean, and Modern Spanish. Then you look for a testing center in your area. You can choose up to 3 options. Once you have chosen the test centers where you want to see the available dates, you click Next in the bottom right corner, and then you're going to get shown the calendar for that testing center when they have the next openings. You pick the date, the time, and then you click Book this appointment. You pay for the exam and you finish the sign-up. And here it's important to understand that getting certified is not just passing the exam. To get certified, you need to both pass your exam and you need to be endorsed. For the CC, there is no experience requirements, meaning your endorsement process is just clicking yes to a bunch of things, saying you agree with the code of ethics, you're going to act ethically, and things like that. Once you have completed answering those questions, that is the endorsement process. Another requirement for certification is that you commit to and fully support the IC² Code of Ethics. Even before the exam, learn these, know them by heart. They can show up on the exam, and if they do, both, it's excellent that you know them and they're easy points for the exam. And those are the protect society, the common good, the necessary public trust and confidence in the infrastructure, act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally, provide diligent and competent service to the principals, and advance and protect the profession. And then once you're certified, you need to every year pay your AMF, your annual maintenance fee, and you need to earn CPEs, continuing professional education credits. So every year, you're going to give IC² some money to keep your certification active, and you're going to keep learning and prove that to IC². The CPEs are pretty easy to get. You can watch podcasts, you can watch video courses, anything really where you grow your knowledge in the field. I would also highly recommend look at the exam outline before you take the exam. Know how long you have, how many questions, and also know that you can pick the exam in multiple languages. All of IC²'s exams are available in English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, German, and Spanish. And on the exam, there will be beta questions or pre-test items. And what that means is there are questions on your exam that you're not graded on and you don't know which they are. They are basically questions that IC² is testing out so they can see if they may or may not want to include them in future exams. Since you don't know which questions they are, they're not the first whatever number, they're randomly dispersed throughout the entire test. Answer all of the questions to the best of your ability. And to pass your exam, you need to score at least 700 out of a possible 1,000 points. Now that doesn't mean that if you answer less than 70% of the questions right, you fail, because the questions are weighted. IC² is pretty close about what that means, but we assume that that means a very easy question could be worth 2 points, where a very hard question could be 10 points, or something like that. And once you have scheduled your exam, you have 365 days to either take the exam or reschedule it. If you need to cancel or reschedule your exam, you can do it online, and that has to be at least 48 hours before the exam, or you can do it by phone, and that has to be at least 24 hours before the exam. There will be a rescheduling or cancellation fee. Rescheduling is $50, cancellation is $100. And if you, within that 1 year, don't cancel and don't sit for the exam, you lose your exam fee. And then as the final thing, IC Squared is always trying to keep their exams up to date. So normally every 3 years, they update all of their exams. You can IC-squared.org go in and see when was the exam you're sitting for last updated and when is the next update. And with that, we are done with this lecture. I hope this has helped you answer some of the questions on how to register and what to expect on the exam. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to talk about all the practicalities on exam day, what to expect, and what to bring. So I would recommend you get to the testing center at least 30 minutes before the exam starts. When I have scheduled my exams on the ones that I knew were close, I still left half an hour early. And I went and looked up where's the entrance, where do I get in, how can I park? So you know all that on exam day, and you can keep your mind as fresh as possible and eliminate all the frustrations that you don't need on exam day. So when you get to the testing center, you tell them, I'm here for an exam, here's my name. Then you need to show them 2 forms of ID. We will cover those in a minute. You need to give them your signature, and you're going to have your palm vein scan done. So they scan the veins in your palm. And if at any point during the exam you need to go to the bathroom, or you need to go take a break, or when the exam is done, you're going to have your palm scanned again. Then they're going to take your photo, any hats, scarves, coats, anything you have. You can't have those on in the testing room and for the photo. All your personal belongings are left outside in the locked storage. And even though they have that little locked storage, it's not huge. Don't bring a lot of stuff. You can fit your cell phone, your keys, your wallet, whatever else you have with you, but don't bring anything big. Then they're going to briefly explain the process, and they're going to take you to your PC. Once they have loaded your exam, you sit down, you click Start, then they're going to show you a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, and then they're going to show you how the testing interface works. If you do not finish that in the 5 minutes you allotted, the exam will end and you will fail. So pay attention to the clock. This is also the 5 minutes where if you're going to write down any mnemonics, anything you want to remember, you get a erasable whiteboard and you get some markers. Write that down in those 5 minutes, but keep a very close eye on the clock. When you're taking the exam, you have to stay seated the whole time. You can't change computers. If you need to get up and you need to go to the bathroom or you need to get a snack, you raise your hand. The proctor is going to come in and do another hand vein scan. They're going to escort you to the front of the building where the reception is, and you can then either get your snack or go to the bathroom. If you take a break, the exam does not stop. So if you take a 20-minute break, you have 20 minutes left for the exam. Now, that doesn't mean I recommend not taking breaks. If you need a break, take it. Go to the bathroom, go eat some sugar, go drink some caffeine, whatever you need to keep going. Just keep in mind, the longer you spend on the break, the less time you have for the exam. If there's any problem with the exam, with the computer, you do the same thing. You raise your hand and the proctor comes in and helps you. And it's important to know that if you take a break, you're not allowed to leave the building. You have to stay in the building and you can go to the bathroom or get a snack, but that is it. Also understand that the testing environment can be loud. Pearson VUE has a ton of exams that they administer. Some of them have written responses that could be essays. That could be people sitting typing on a keyboard that clicks every time they type. There could be construction noise outside. I have been in tests where there were people grinding metal right outside the testing center, and it was very, very hard to focus. But to help with that, the testing center will provide you with earplugs if you ask them. Now for what you should bring to the test center. You obviously need the 2 forms of ID. Both of them must not be expired. They must be original documents. They can't be photocopies or faxes. And the primary ID has to have your photo and signature. And the photo has to be firmly affixed to the document. That means that it has to be laminated over. So that could be your ID, your passport, your driver's license. The secondary ID only needs a signature, but it obviously has to have the same name. The primary ID could technically also be military IDs, green cards, resident visas, anything that's issued by the government that has your photo and signature, an employee ID, school ID, and in some cases credit cards. And then for the secondary ID, that can be your ATM card, your debit card, your credit card, your social security card, and really most forms of ID that's not on the primary list. And then it's important that your first and last name completely match the first and last name used to register. So if your license says Jonathan, then you can't register as John or Johnny or something else. It has to match completely. And if the name doesn't match, then you have to bring proof of a legal name change. So if you, for some reason, change your name, you need to be able to prove that. If you're unable to do that, if the names don't match and you can't prove why that is, you'll be asked to leave and you forfeit your exam fee. So make sure that everything is registered right. In the beginning, I mentioned I would suggest arriving at least 30 minutes before the exam. Now, if you arrive within 15 minutes of your start time, meaning up to 15 minutes late, you may lose your seat. It's completely up to the testing center whether they allow you to take the exam or not. They will of course do what they can to accommodate you, but if they cannot, you'll be sent away and you'll lose your exam fee. And if you're more than 15 minutes late, you're a no-show, you lost your exam fee. So be early. If, while doing your exam, you expect there's some sort of fraud or cheating, then you are expected to report that directly to ISC². So that's all the practical stuff before the exam or during the exam. Once you have answered all the questions, you click End Exam. You either raise your hand, the proctor gets you, they do the hand vein scan again, and you get taken to the reception. At this point, they're going to give you the unofficial results. And that should either be, congratulations, you passed, or unfortunately, you didn't pass. You get a breakdown of the domains where you were below proficient. And the reason I say that it's an unofficial result is that IC² does statistical and psychometric analysis on the scores if there's any anomalies on your exam. Outside of the testing from home, I have never heard it be a problem with someone who got their passed or failed changed to the other. Being done in a testing center, I've only ever heard of it staying the same. But regardless, they're gonna do those tests. And normally, it can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to get the results. And as I mentioned, outside of the time when IC² was testing, if they wanted to let people do the exams from home, I have not heard of irregularities or fraud, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So it is completely at the discretion of IC² if they grant you your certification or not, if they approve your exam results. And if, for whatever reason, you don't pass your exam, you of course would want to attempt it again, because your goal hasn't changed, has it? You still want the same things. When you do something that's difficult, you will fail sometimes. You now know what to do next time better, you understand how the system works, so you go right back and you keep studying. You can reschedule your next test 30 days after the first test. Now, if you don't pass that one either, it goes up to 60 days, and then again, if you don't pass that one, it goes up to 90 days. And you can only try the exam 4 times within a 12-month period. Once that 12-month period has expired, you go back to 30, 60, 90 days. But this is only per certification. You can attempt any other IC² certification even though you're on hold for another. And with that, we are done with what you should expect in the testing center on testing day and what you need to do after the exam. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to talk about what happens after you pass the exam. You got the congratulations. We're pleased to inform you that you have provisionally passed your certification exam. I mean, those are some of the most awesome words you can see on a piece of paper, maybe outside of winning the lottery. So you passed. All your hard work, your time, your effort, your money, it all paid off. High five. But you're not done yet. Yes, you have passed the exam, but now you need to get endorsed. For the CC, the endorsement is super simple. You just need to click yes, 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 no to a handful of questions where you say you're going to be ethical, you're going to follow the code of ethic, you're not a cyber criminal. Once you have done that, that is your endorsement. And after you're fully certified, now you need to make sure that your certification stays valid and current. For that, you need the 2 things we talked about already. You need to pay the annual maintenance fees. For the certified in cybersecurity, it's $50 a year. For any other IC² certification in the US right now, it's $125. Again, may depend where you live. You have given IC² the money, you also need to earn CPEs. Those were the continual professional education credits we talked about earlier. And if you do both, if you do the CPEs and the AMFs, you should never need to take the exam again unless you let it lapse, meaning not paying the AMFs or not doing the CPEs. And the CPEs are really what you do to prove that you are continually learning about IT security and you're staying informed about what's happening in the field. For the certified in cybersecurity, you need 15 annual CPEs, a total of 45 per cycle. For the CISP, you need 40, a total of 120. And for the CCSP, you need 30, a total of 90 over 3 years. And you can obviously get more than that, but this is the minimum. So every year, you need to have a certain amount of hours of certification-related training. That can be webinars, articles, conferences, video training for other certifications, but you need to keep learning. And there really are a ton of different things out there that you can use to keep your certification current. There are two different types of CPEs, Group A and Group B. Group A is everything that's directly related to the certification, and Group B is professional development. Professional development means communication courses, management courses. It's some sort of professional development, but it's not directly related to the certification. It's all the other stuff that makes you better at your job. For the CC, you don't have Group B CPEs. For the CISP and CCSP, you can earn up to 10 a year. The rest have to be directly related. Getting your CPEs doesn't have to cost a lot of money. There is a ton of websites that have acceptable CPEs where you can go, learn something new, and then apply that towards your recertification. In the next lecture, I'm going to have some links to sites where you can go and get free or inexpensive CPEs. I, for instance, have a lot of students that just do the IC² web seminars because those CPEs are automatically applied. Now, if you do something that's not automatically applied, really is suitable still. I mean, it takes less than a minute to enter your CPEs. You go to the IC² website, then you go to the member page, you click on Submit CPE, then you type what type of CPEs they are, where you took it, how many hours you spent, whatever proof you have of this, and then you hit Submit. Me personally, before I started training other people, I would do more training. I would find a video course that had a certificate of completion. That way you have the proof I completed this training, and you don't just get the one CPE here and one CPE there for the podcasts. You earn one CPE per hour spent. If I take a course that takes 25 hours, well then I get 25 CPEs. Most of the times, if I have the proof, I submit it right away, but you don't have to. There is then, after you submit, a small chance you will get audited, and you then have to prove this is the CPEs I took. Here then, you just submit that certificate of completion. So look through the links in the next section, start on your next certification, use the certificate of completion from your video courses, but also here keep in mind you cannot start earning CPEs before the first of the month following you becoming fully certified. Meaning if you became fully certified, that is the exam and the endorsement, and that was approved on May 10th, then you cannot start earning CPEs until June 1st. And with that, we are done with this lecture. I hope this has helped you answer some of the questions that you may have on what to do once you pass your exam and how to maintain your certification. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to talk about what happens when you fail the exam. Yes, it sucks tremendously, but it is not the end of the world. I personally have failed multiple certification exams, and it is in no way fun. You just spend months preparing for this, you put your life on hold, you spend a ton of time and a ton of money, and all this for nothing. And what you do next determines how successful you are, and not just for the exam, but for life in general. Learning to fail is a skill set. It is something you need to be good at, because when you fail at something, that just means you're trying difficult things. If you're not failing at anything, well, that means you're not really trying anything that's difficult. Certification exams are difficult. So if you want to get ahead in life, you need to learn how to fail right. When I did my first ever IT certification, I failed. So did the other 3 people that I was studying with. We weren't. And out of the 4 of us, 2 of them said, well, it's probably just too difficult. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to waste any more time or money on this. And they left it at that. And at that point, all the time you have spent, all the money, all the effort, that is truly wasted. For myself, I had maybe half a day of negative self-talk. Oh, this is crap. I'm not good enough. Why am I wasting my time here? I had the same thoughts that they had. But then at some point I was like, that's not true. This certification is not to get the better of me. I'm going to beat it. And one of the other guys in the group of 4 that also eventually passed the exam had the exact same thoughts. We sat down. We talked it over. We sulked for a few days. We felt bad for ourselves. But then we got back up on the horse. We started studying again. The first exam that I failed was one of the exams for the CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associate. But today I have 3 CCNAs. I also have 2 CCNPs. The 2 guys who gave up have no certifications. They are still 14 years later stuck in the same job that they hate. So if you fail, give yourself the time to feel bad about it. Sulk, be upset, Then brush yourself off, and hopefully you have someone in your family that can help you with that positive reinforcement. Then you go back at it. So after the exam, when you get the printout, if you fail, you get told how well you did in all of the domains, which ones you're weak in, and they'll have a score of below, near, or above proficiency. If you pass the exam, you just get the congratulations you passed letter. You have no clue how well you did in any of the domains. When you fail, you do. Now, if you fail, almost regardless of your scores, I would start studying right away, and I would rebook the exam in 30 days, as soon as you can. And then, of course, focus on the areas where you got below or near proficiency. That doesn't mean don't study the ones where you had above, but spend less time there. If you are near or below in 3 or more domains, I would suggest starting completely over. Watch the whole video series, supplement your notes, watch the video series again, take practice tests, and then every time you're done with a practice test, you re-study everything that you got wrong until you are at a point where you can explain the concept and you're clear on why you got it wrong. Then you take another test. And this is just like anything you do that is difficult. It is much easier if you have the right approach. So answer exactly what I asked. Don't answer what you want to answer. Deconstruct the question. Figure out what are they actually asking here. If you can narrow it down, eliminate answer options. And if you still have 2 where you said it could be either, trust your intuition. And then after you fail, if this happens multiple times, remember you have to wait 30 days, then you have to wait 60 days, and then you have to wait 90 days. And you can only have 4 attempts every year. And I think it's important, regardless of how many domains you have below or near, start studying right away. Because all the knowledge is still fresh in your mind. It is in your short-term memory. I know people who failed the exam, took a 3-month break, and when they started studying again, they had to start completely over because they forgot most of the knowledge. Some of them did start over, but most of them actually just gave up. Oh, I forgot it all. I don't want to waste all that time again. And at that point, all your efforts are truly wasted. Whereas if you start over again, you get back on the horse, you start seeing the areas that you're weak in. After you pass the exam, no one will ever care that you failed. So for the exams where I failed, I gave myself half a day. I took the rest of the day off when I failed the exam and said, okay, I'm okay to feel bad about it today, but tomorrow we start studying again. So when I did my CCNP concentration, Cisco Certified Networking Professional, you need to pass 3 exams to get certified. 2 of them I passed the first time. The third one was CCNP routing, that I worked very little with, and you need 690 points to pass. I got 688. I was 2 points away from passing. That was not a very happy thought. It was right before Christmas. I just wanted to be done so I could celebrate Christmas with my family. But again here, I followed the same advice I'm giving you. And with Cisco certifications, it's only 5 days you have to wait. So I went ahead, I scheduled my exam again for the next week. I had the exam printed out with my weak areas, and then I took a week of vacation. I did nothing but study. And luckily here, my wife is very supportive. She helped me with that positive reinforcement. You can do this. This is just a bump in the road. You're going to beat it. And then after that week of only studying, I felt pretty strong in my weak areas. I knew I was not going to fail in them again. And when you do the CCNP exam, you can see your percentages. So I went into the exam with a lot of confidence, and I failed again. 688 points to 690. 2 points again. That is less than 1 question. And the reason I failed again, even though I had focused my entire week just on my weak areas, is the CCNP, just like any of the IC Squared certifications, have a very large question pool. The first time, I got a ton of BGP questions. I used my week to mostly study that. I was really strong in BGP, and on the second test, I got almost no questions on BGP. So again, I sulked for half a day, and then I restudied. And now I was even more determined. I waited the 5 days until I could take the exam again, and I passed with great scores. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that failing an exam really means very little if you have the right attitude. You need to understand that you need to fail forward. Failing is a learning experience. Okay, I learned something. I know how the exam works. Next time, I'm going to be much better prepared. And yes, paying for the exam another time is a pill to swallow. It definitely was for us with my exams. But then again, the 35% higher salary, the salary over $100,000 a year, can easily offset that. And potentially, if you're lucky, you might work for a company that will help you pay for your exams. If you look at my certification path, I have some of my certifications listed here, and out of a little over 20, I have failed 5 of them. But every single certification I have failed, I later passed. And whenever I have a job interview, I'm applying for a position, they don't care. Why would they? I passed. I understood how to get past the defeat and actually turn it into a win. I've even used it on an interview. They asked me what was the hardest part about taking certifications. Well, failing. And then they asked, well, what do you do when you do that? I explained my process. And by doing that, I showed them that I had that critical skill. I can turn a loss into a win. I knew how to get past the failure and move on. I completely understand that this is much easier saying than doing, but think back to why are you doing this? What are you going to get out of getting your certification? Has that changed? I would hope not. Since it hasn't changed, go forward and continue on your path. Don't let the certifications get the better of you. Win. So the better you prepare, the more that you make sure that you study right, you approach the exam the exact right way, well, that's going to help raise your chances. And with that, we are done with this video. I hope it has helped you understand that failing your exam is not the end. It's just a little bump on the road, and you are going to pass this. You can do this. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to talk about how you should approach practice questions, which really is how you will succeed on the exam. You need the knowledge, you need to be able to explain it, then you need to be able to deconstruct the questions. What are they actually asking here? From that, using the knowledge, what is the most right answer in this scenario? And then finally, time management. When I talk to students who fail the exam, it is most often because they use practice questions wrong. They say, I took a test, I scored 70%, then I took another test, which is the completely wrong way to do it. If you just take another test and another test, you don't learn anything new. You're not going to progress. It's not just grind out questions. It is take a test, everything you're not completely sure on, mark it for review, and then at the end of the test, everything that you had marked for review and everything you got wrong, you restudy those areas. And you don't do another practice test until you have restudied them. You are completely clear on why you got that question wrong. You are able to explain the concepts. Then, and only then, do you move on to the next test. You have actually expanded your knowledge, and on the next test, you're going to do better in those areas. And remember, don't reuse practice questions. If you take a test now, you score, let's say 70%, and then you retake it in 2 days, then you might score 80%. It is very likely that you're scoring 80% because you remember some of the questions. So use each set of questions only once. This is also an English test as well as a cybersecurity test. Answer all the questions with exactly what they ask for. Answer it like a lawyer. And what I mean by that is lawyers answer exactly what they are asked. They don't read into questions. They don't try to interpret. You ask them a question, they give you the exact answer. And you need to train yourself to do this because this is one of the biggest problems people have on the exam. They either read into the question, try to answer more than they're actually being asked, or they're used to doing stuff. This happens, then I want to respond with this. And also remember, this is the perfect world of IC squared. It's rainbows and unicorns. We have enough time, we have enough money to implement the right solution. And the right solution is not the most expensive, it is the appropriate solution for whatever we are protecting. We have the right top-down leadership and we do everything right. This is most likely not the world you live in and work in every day, but for the exam, answer from that point of view. Now, let's talk about how to approach the actual questions. Read the entire question. Take the time you need to completely read it, probably read it twice, and then deconstruct it. What are they really asking? You need to find the keywords and you need to find the indicators. Indicators are most, best, least, can, always, and then the keywords is what is this question actually about? That could be PKI or self-directed or something like that. And when I say deconstruct, boil it down to its essence. It might be a full paragraph of a question, but really what they're asking is the last 10 words. If we look at this question, Jane is the lead of our incident response team. They have proof hackers have gained access to some of our systems and they have successfully altered some of our customer information. Jane reports this to Bob, the IT security manager. Who should Bob notify first? Not a super long question, but there's still a ton of fluff. The fact that Jane is the lead of our incident response team, doesn't really matter. That we have proof does. Hackers have gained access to some of our systems. The fact that Jane reports it to Bob, who should Bob notify first? So really, the question is, we have been attacked, they have compromised us, who do we notify first? That's it. Then we look at the answer options, the data owner, the regulatory agencies that govern our sector, the IT Security Steering Committee, or the customers who are compromised. Now, very likely we would talk to all of those. We would inform them at some point. The question is, first, would we notify the data owner? I would say probably. How about the agency that governs our sector? No, we have to notify them, but they're definitely not first. The IT Security Steering Committee? Again, no. We do need to notify them, but the data owner needs to know first. And then finally, the customers. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on the laws, the regulations, how bad the breach was, and many other things. Now, I have heard from many students that use different techniques to make this better. Some read the question once, then look at the answer options, and then pick the best answer. Others read the answers first. These are the 4 options I have. Then they read the question, and they kind of have it in the back of their mind. These are the options. Regardless of how you do it, I suggest reading the question at least once, preferably twice, deconstruct it, figure out what are they actually asking, and then go through the answer options and argue with yourself. Sure, we need to let the IT Security Steering Committee know, but do we do that first? No, we don't. We let the data owner know, and so on. Does the answer option that you pick meet all the requirements that the question poses? We need to be both accurate and precise. Here, they're probably all right answers, but what is the most right answer? In this specific question, you have 4 possible right answers, but in many questions, you have 2 possible right answers and you have 2 distractors. That means that you can eliminate 1, maybe 2 of the answer options. Some of them can be just completely they don't match. They ask about something in the OSI model, and 2 of the answers have to do with fire suppression and PKI. Those are easy to eliminate. Some of them will also list things that we do, but in the wrong order or not appropriate in this situation. So let's say you have a question and you're like, I think this is the answer, but it could also be this. Well, then look through the last options. If you have no clue and you're not sure on any of the 4, well, then you have 25%. If you can eliminate 2 of them, now you have 50% chance of getting it right. Then you do the internal dialogue. You argue this is a better answer because of this, and once you have gone through that, it is most likely the right answer. Another way you could think through the question is, if we can only implement or do one thing, what would best solve the problem? In this case, if you can only notify one thing, one person, one agency, one whatever, which one should you choose? Again, we get the same answer, the data owner. But it can, in some cases, help you to argue with yourself, this is a better answer because if I can only pick one, then I would choose this. And now that we have talked about how to approach the questions, let's finish this lecture out with talking about some more practical stuff. It is perfectly normal when you start to score somewhere around 60%. Perfectly normal, it is what you should expect because you're just starting out. Even if you score 50%, it really doesn't matter, those are just numbers. Now what you do after the test is really what matters. This is where you restudy, you look at all the questions you had marked for review and all the questions you got wrong. Then you restudy those areas until you can explain what it is, where we use it, how we use it, why we use it, and when we use it. And since most people don't have someone they can talk to, talking to yourself works just as fine. Explain the concept, all the intricacies, because when you're able to explain something, you actually understand it. Now, as you do more questions, you restudy more, you're obviously going to do better. Now, when are you ready for the exam? It is likely that you can pass the exam just by doing this course and all the practice questions. But I would suggest scoring 80 to 85% before testing. You do also at some point have to start looking at time management. For the test engines where they have that timer, keep an eye on it and maybe set a page saying, at 50 questions, I should have spent an hour. At 100, 2 hours, because I have talked to so many students that say, I spent too much time on the first 50 questions. And then at some point, I just started skimming over the question, answering really quickly and clicking next, which at that point is completely fair. You have to do that. But if at all possible, let's not get to that point. Let's learn the time management before you get to the exam. And then when you sit in the exam and you can see you're in question 42, but you spent an hour and 10 minutes already, you're 75% sure that this is probably the right answer, well then choose that answer and move on. And once you move on, once you click next, completely forget the question you just answered. You can't go back and change the answer, so put it out of your mind. It's not going to help anything if you keep obsessing about that one. And then let's talk about breaks. Take them when you need them, and preferably take them before you need them. So in your studying, do at least 1 or 2 full 100-question practice tests so you know if your mind will stay clear enough after question number 80 or 85. If your brain stops braining at some point, know when that is. Let's say at 1 hour and 15 minutes. At 1 hour and 15, I'm just going to start staring blankly at the screen. I'm going to read the same question 5 times and I still don't understand it. So if you know at 1 hour and 15 minutes-ish, I hit the wall, well maybe take a break at 1 hour. Either just close your eyes for 20 seconds, meditate, do whatever you can, or get up, walk around, go to the bathroom, if possible, eat some sugar, drink some caffeine, and then get back to the test. The test does not stop. If you take a 10-minute break, you have 10 minutes less for the exam. If you take half an hour, well then half an hour. That said, I still think they're a good idea. Reset your mind and back to the exam. And do as much of this as you can when you take practice tests to emulate what would actually happen on the exam. Do the full test. Lock yourself in a room. Take the breaks, but don't let anything else distract you. Because if you just do 20 questions here and 20 questions there, you don't know how your brain is going to react when you hit question number 80 or 90. I hope all of this has helped you demystify the exams, help you figure out how to approach questions, and how you can most effectively and efficiently prepare for your test and pass your exam. And with that, we're done with this lecture. I will see you in the next one. In this lecture, we're going to talk about picking your career path and the certifications that complement the career path. This is a question I get all the time. Should I take this certification? Or I have passed this certification. Should I do this one next? And my answer every time is, I don't know. What do you want to end up working with? What sounds exciting to you? What is your end dream job? Well, once we have that, well, then we can design the path backwards. It's the same when you do a goal for an organization. This is where we are, this is where we want to be, and then we work backwards. Okay, so I am here now. This is the job I want. These are the requirements for that job. How do I get those? How do I get from point A to point B? And to start out with that, let's look at cyberseek.org. You may have seen me talk about it before, where I show there is 941,000 people working in cybersecurity in the US right now. But there is also 521,000 open jobs. So less than a million employed and more than 500,000 open. Crazy ratio. I also normally mention over here, you can see 90,000 people who are CESP certified in the US and 117, almost 18,000 open jobs. I'm going to assume that most of the 90,000 are already employed. Crazy demand for CISP certified individuals. The same for CISM, CISA. Really, any of the certifications that list here is in high demand, making this an amazing time to get certified. Even something like Security Plus, an entry-level certification, 177,000 people have the certification, 50,000 open jobs. That is still an amazing ratio. But for this video, the reason we look at cyberseek.org is the career path. Here, regardless of where you are in your career, you can still use this. Let's say you're completely new and you are in networking and you want to get into cybersecurity. Then they have a suggestion on start with networking. These are the skills you need. These are the cybersecurity skills that you should add. These are the certifications they suggest, and these are the job titles. Then you pick, this is the entry position where I enter cybersecurity. Let's say you start as a cybersecurity specialist. All right, well then the mid-level role can be any of these. Let's say you're a consultant, then you go to an administrator, then you go to a manager. So really this is a tool to show you if you are here, then go here. And it does somewhat I talk about. You want to be the manager, well then get your CISM, your CISP, Security Plus, CISA. Any of those certifications are the ones that are requested. Now for our example here, let's say you are a network engineer. You are heavy on security, but only in networking. And your dream job is becoming a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. So how do you get from point A to point B? Well, first off, I would start with looking at what do they want in a CISO? What is it that they have in job postings for CISOs? What are the requirements? What are the nice to haves? How can you get to that point? So let's look at some job postings I just found randomly on LinkedIn. First off here, qualifications. That is the must-have, right? Bachelor's degree, healthcare, security, leadership, some travel, and then they would like you to have a CISP. Anything preferred is a bonus on the resume, but it is not required. Let's look at the next one. And I'm just going to go through about 10 of these just to give you an idea. Whenever you do this for yourself, you have your own specific dream job, so go look for that. And if you don't have the dream job, if you're not really sure what you want to do, well then maybe find the midway job. I'm doing this now, this sounds awesome in the future, and once I get to that point, well then I'll look around again. So here, the degree, 10 years of experience, CISP, CISM, CIPT, some soft skills, written, verbal, innovative thinking, experience with vendor negotiations and management. So this video is really focused on the certification path. So here again, degree and a CISP or CISM. Next one, they have some technical requirements. You need to understand these topics. You need to get a CISP if you don't have it already. And this is actually a little uncommon for the US job market. Once you get into C-level executives, CISOs, Chief Information Officers, most often they want a college degree, but apparently not here. I personally don't think they're that important. I think the experience is the most important thing, then the proof of your knowledge, that is to some degree the certifications, and then maybe a degree. But the fact that I took an IT degree 20 years ago really means very little today. But I understand there are people who think degrees are amazing. Good for you. It is completely a valid opinion, and as you can see on most job postings, they are required. Here, again, a degree, experience, certifications, same ones as the last one. Next one, degree, 10 years experience with all these different things, CISP or CISM. You get the idea by now, right? Here, they're actually a little specific. You must have a CISP in good standing. So I actually like recruiters who are more specific like this. If they know there's such a thing as good standing, that means they also actually understand what the CISP certification is and how it works. Let's just look at the last four here real quick. Degree, experience, CISP, CISM, CISA, or similar. So here, any of those is a benefit. I personally think that sometimes more certifications is better up to a certain point. I have, 20 certifications. I would never put all of those on a resume. If I was applying for this job, I would put the ones they ask for and the ones that are relevant. I might not list all the CCNAs I have, maybe not even the CCNPs, because this job doesn't require me to know any of that stuff. It's good that a CISO has a very broad knowledge base, but give them what they ask for. I also have my Security Plus. Since the CISP is way higher level, the CISM the same, I'm gonna leave Security Plus out unless they ask for it. CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. This I might leave in because it is actually a security certification. So when I did my certifications, the bulk of them I did in one round, and I did it because it made my resume look nice. I really just wanted my CCNP and I wanted my CISP. But on the path there, I took a bunch of different other certifications that were very similar to my end certifications and that made my resume look nice. So on my path to my CCNP, I got my CCENT and my CCNA. Once I was done with the CCNP, I started on my CISP studying. Here, I got my CCNA Security, I got my Certified Ethical Hacker, and I got my Security Plus. Then, of course, ended up with getting my CISP. But now my resume has 7 certifications, not just 2. There was maybe another 5-10% extra effort involved in getting those extra certifications, and while just having my CISP or my CISM for this application, that would be fine. But if I have both, then I, as a hiring manager, would think you look slightly better, and that really is what you need to do. Not just the certifications, but also your experience. And definitely when you make your application, tailor it to exactly what they are asking for. All right, done with that rant. Let's look at the last ones here. Experience, must have a CISP. Oh, another one with good standing. CISP required, CISM preferred, and any other SANS certification is a plus. Again, this is a recruiter that actually knows their stuff. Same thing here, degree. Now a degree, if you have it, amazing. If you don't, sometimes you can get away with having a ton of certifications. I have done that myself. I have had interviews with really big companies like Google, and they don't care that I don't have a degree because I have a ton of experience, which is the most important, and then I have a ton of certifications. The ton of certifications kind of put a band-aid on the lack of a degree. Now, with that said, there are many places where a degree is a hard requirement. The higher up you get in an organization, the more of a requirement it becomes. It is, just like your certification studying, an investment in yourself and your career. Last one here, track record, the willingness, the ability and willingness to roll up your sleeve. When I read that, I read, you must be able and willing to work 100 hours a week and not complain about it. So if this was me, I would probably avoid this company. That said, most of the other requirements we've seen, specific information about which kind of experience you need, and a CISP. And I think for the CISO, CISP is really the end requirement. That's one of the ones that you just have to have. If you don't have it, you should be willing to get it. And again, this is just the example that I picked out of a hat. Now let's go back and look at the CyberSeek and finish up the CISO example. So let's say I am a network engineer, and really this stops before CISO, right? The cybersecurity manager is probably the feeder role you have before the CISO. Let's say networking, then technician, then analyst, then manager, and go through each of these steps. See here, okay, what should I learn here? What should I know for this role? Because it's not going to be, you're going to come into networking and then be a CISO. You're going to have those 3-4 different job titles before you get to CISO. So you're another specialist. Then again here, if you know you're going for CISO, I would get the CISP as soon as you can, and you really can get it whenever you want. The only difference here is you will not be fully CISP certified until you have the required job experience. If you take the exam before you have that, well then you're an associate of ISC squared. But many job postings that I have seen have both of those listed, CISP or associate of ISC squared. Now you're not going to see it on the CISO job because at that point you really need to have that 10-15 years of cybersecurity experience. But for any of the jobs before that, the specialist, the analyst or consultant, the manager, all of those, most jobs will list both. And even if your dream job is not one of these here or something else in cybersecurity, these are still amazing tools that can give you some sort of input into what should you look at. And then when you go and find your perfect job, well then research what they ask for. If you don't want to be a CISO, well then find your amazing dream job. Figure out what do companies ask someone in that position to have. What are the hard requirements? What are the soft requirements? And what are the nice to haves? Once you have all that, well then you can start working towards being that person. But also understand, if this is 5-10 years down the line, then this plan is something that needs to be adjusted, because the requirements for a CISO now and the requirements for a CISO in 10 years is going to be very, very different. So every year, every 2 years, go in check, find 10, 20 job ads. Is there anything significantly new in here? And if there is, move towards that. Learn that skill, research that area. And I'm not saying you can't change direction all of a sudden. You can't change your career path. I have done that multiple times. It is completely okay that what you want now is different from what you wanted 10 years ago. I mean, many kids wanted to be firemen or policemen or nurses or whatever when they were growing up. When they got a little older, that changed. It's no different when you're an adult. Any plan you have should be an adaptive plan. As you move along, you change it slightly or very much. I worked in web design for many years, and at some point I hated it. I was just not happy doing it, so I changed path completely. Before that, I worked in politics, and I mentioned the same thing when I talk about my study plans. It is a living document, and the goal might change, and then you adjust the plan. But I think it is important to have that document, to have your plan. This is where I am now. This is where I want to be. How do I get there? And not just for your career. Your career should be a part of your overarching plan. This is what I want for my life. And I think also here it is good if you can be that 3-year-old that asks, then what? Then what? I hear a lot of people saying, I want to make $100,000 a year. It's like, okay, then what? What do you want to do when you do that? Well, then I can afford things. Yes, I understand that. But then what? I understand that being financially independent is amazing. But also understand that once you reach your goal, then what? What is it you want to do when you have achieved it? And then some people say, well, then I want to spend more time outside. Okay, I think that's a very valid and good plan. Why don't you start that now? Is there any reason you can't spend time outside and still work towards your goal of making $100,000? So what I'm trying to say here is have the plan, have the overarching plan, have the career plan, have all that, but also be clear on why is it you want to go to that destination? What is it you're going to get when you get there? And when you get there, then what? What's the next step? What do we do from here? So have that plan, both your life and your career, as a living document that as you move along it evolves, new goals get added, old goals get taken out, but you still know what it is you want. And with that, I think we're done with this lecture. Thank you for hanging in there. I know this is not one of my normal lectures on either the study materials or the actual curriculum of the certifications I teach, but I still think it is important that you know where you want to go and how to get there. And with that, thank you, and I will see you in the next lecture.